I could watch Kaijin, the badass blacksmith, punch this dude all day long. Sexy elf lady fan service, badass Captain Falcon dwarf punches, and amazingly poetic swift justice. That's the name of the game in this episode of That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime. A slow but very joyous episode of the series, which showed me that the organization that Rimuru is building up in this brand new fantasy world is going to be a cast of very fun, deep, and colorful characters. And this episode right here was something that I did not expect. I didn't expect to get some sort of like weird medieval trial in the middle of this adventure through the dwarf city, but that's exactly what happened. And believe it or not, Rimuru is actually not the cause of any of it. It's all because of Kaijin, who as far as I'm concerned is easily the most badass character of the entire series. I mean, please, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, can we not talk about how awesome that punch scene was in this episode? Minister Vesta, Minister Doucheboy, whatever you want to call him, seeing him get punched by this dwarf in this episode, my word, did that just rock my jollies. The story of this episode is pretty simple. Picking up from the last episode, Rimuru is now partying with his brand new dwarf friends in the Butterfly Bar, which is ran by all sorts of beautiful and fan servicey elf ladies. They just continue to pour on that fan service like syrup on pancakes. If you're into that sort of thing, you might end up liking this episode. But what I especially loved about this scene, most importantly, is that this is the moment where Rimuru finally decides that he wants Kaijin to be an official member of his group and to leave this place entirely. This is all actually something that Kaijin wants for himself. He realizes that there's not really much for him in this place, as he's constantly being badgered by Minister Vesta, a character who briefly appeared in the last episode and makes his full douchey introduction in this one right here. Basically, he has always had it out for Kaijin. They have a history. They work together in the military. And even though this guy came from a much better family and more well-off, Kaijin always managed to impress the king. And this guy was always basically number two, to the point where he held a constant grudge against this guy. And after an incident in the past which involved creating magical robot soldiers, don't ask me, they just do it, he decides to blame it all on Kaijin. So Kaijin decides to leave the military and become a simple blacksmith. But Minister Vesta still manages to get his revenge against this guy by giving him impossible tasks and orders and things that no single person could possibly complete. All because of his stupid grudge. And that brings us to the scene of the episode where Minister Vesta comes in to break up his party and says, "Hey, Slime, we don't like your type around here." He ends up pouring his drink on him, which absolutely pisses Rimuru off, but he decides, you know what? I just made some friends with some really important people. I don't want to screw this up. And then Kaijin just punches this dude in the face, and my god, I loved it. He even follows it up with another. Always double tap. So of course this means Rimuru and all the dwarves end up getting arrested and thrown right back in jail where they were at the beginning of this arc. And they're gonna go on trial and even have an appearance by the king himself, Gazel Dwargo. And of course everybody in the courtroom is all curmudgeony and blah 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 blah, the dwarves are bad. They give out punishment faster than the Earl of Lemongrab, and they're like, look, you're gonna be working in the mines for 20 years, it's gonna suck, have fun. But then the king finally decides to speak up, which means Kaijin actually has an opportunity to talk to him, and at first the king is like, you know, dude, we used to be cool. Can't you just come back and join my army? But Kaijin is like, no way, man. I only follow one king, and it's that little slime right there. So the king begrudgingly decides that he's actually going to exile Kaijin and his friends, knowing that they're basically just going to go with this group. It's all a part of his crazy convoluted plan to have a little bit of respect for this character while not having to cry in front of everyone. It's also because he needs someone to actually tail them, and what would be perfect than people that he actually knows? There's actually going to be a ninja girl who's going to be working directly for him, a sexy ninja elf girl, I might add. And she's going to be keeping tabs on the dwarves as they go on their journey with Rimuru, a character that the king sees as someone who could be very powerful and devastating. And a lot of that is probably because he senses the actual energy of Veldora, the storm dragon. And speaking of which, Are we ever gonna see that dragon again? Can't wait to see more of his tsundere ass. Oh, and if you're wondering what happened to Minister Vesta, well, you know, what goes around comes around, you reap what you sow. He ends up getting exiled by the king himself, and I have a feeling this is probably not going to be the last we see of this character. He came across as extremely vindictive, and I have a feeling he'll want to get revenge against these characters, or who knows, maybe he could transform into a wacky sidekick, or maybe we'll never see his crying ass again. So what's the rundown on this episode of That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime? Only 2 minutes of Gobta, 1 out of 5. No, seriously, this was actually another really great episode of That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime. I can't believe we're 5 episodes in and the main character is still just a little blob of slime. It blows my mind that that's the main character, and yet I still find myself getting invested in this amazing world, and that's because really, this show is all about the characters, and they do a really great job of actually making you give a shit about them. Kaijin in particular is just such an awesome character and very relatable to a lot of people. That and the fact that I just think he's going to be a great member of the group. I can't wait to see what he's going to add to this organization, interacting with the goblins. With all the soft, cutesy characters in the series, we needed some good old rugged dwarves to join the group, and I think they're going to be a very fun addition. One of the biggest surprises about this episode has to be the king himself, King Gazel, who at first looked like he was going to be kind of a one-note type of character, just very high-strung, always in his ways and never changing, but there's clearly a lot more going on under the hood. He's one of those characters you can't necessarily judge. He realizes that there's something special about this slime and why he is so powerful, and that's why he decides to actually allow these guys to leave and to keep tabs on them. It's a really smart move, and I can't wait to see what other sort of plays he's going to be making on in the series. I also really love the first part of the episode, not just for the fan service, but actually for one great moment, where there's this one elf girl who actually uses a magic crystal ball to see into the future, and she looks for the one person that Rimuru is going to be destined to be with, and it's that one girl that's been appearing in the intro, and the one who's almost certainly the legendary hero that threw down with Veldora the Storm Dragon. And they're not being too subtle about the fact that she's probably going to be a reincarnated Japanese person, probably that one girl from the very beginning of the series during the bombing of Tokyo in World War II. I eagerly await the moment where Rimuru is finally going to be able to meet this person and how important it's actually going to end up being to this series. That being said, this was a pretty great conclusion to a 2-episode arc about the introduction of some brand new members of Team Slime, and I can't wait to see what they're actually going to do next. I will say that this show never feels not entertaining. I don't know, that's a weird way of actually putting it. What I'm really trying to say is every single time I watch an episode of That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime, I always end up having a really good time, laughing a lot, and truly enjoying my time with these characters. So I hope it's going to go on for a long time, or at least I hope we're going to get many more seasons in the future, as this is one of the most unique fantasy stories that I've ever seen, and it continues to be incredibly engrossing, and it's not because of the ridiculous fantasy setting, it's just for the really well-developed characters. They're all really great. So this episode right here, really, really funny, and it had a fantastic and satisfying ending, and guys, that dwarf punch. That dwarf punch, 5 out of 5 from me. That's my thoughts on the episode. I'd love to get all of yours. You can tell me all of them in the comment section below, and what you hope to see from the rest of That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime. Thank you guys for watching this review. I'll see you all next time, and as always, stay down there, baby.